Hello and welcome to the Sisters for Fitness Wellness Show. I'm Stephanie Gaines-Bryant. Our guests today are Dr. James Benjamin and Joyce Benjamin. They are the founders of Autism FYI. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And you're also my most fun guest. You've been on before and I always have a good time with you guys.
Good.
But we're here to talk about a serious issue. Your organization helps with identifying people who have autism. You help first responders identify people who have autism, for example, police officers.
Right, correct.
So let's start off by giving a little refresher. What made you develop this organization?
I would say, when our sons were graduated high school, there was an incident where a young man Latson. What was his name? Reginald Latson. And he was an 18-year-old black male who was dropped off by his mom at the library, and he was sitting outside in his hoodie waiting to go into the library. Well, someone called, said they saw a black man outside the library and they thought he had a gun and he had a hoodie on. So the police called the school resource officer, who came over from next door to the library, and when the young man wouldn't answer him, he started walking away, and the officer put his hands on him to turn him around and say, "I was talking to you," and a fight ensued. The officer was injured pretty badly, fractured his leg, anyway, in multiple places. But the boy was arrested, and because he was 18, he was not able to see his mother. They arrested him. They then put him in a psychiatric hospital for 10 days, and it was 2 weeks before his mom could get to him. We knew at that point we were scared to death because our sons are very large, they're mixed race, and so we said if there was some way that officers could identify that the person has a disability, especially when it's an invisible disability like autism, then they could get a heads up that special considerations are necessary. So we created this program, a safety program, and we call it IRIS, Immediate Recognition Increases Safety.
So tell us, what should police officers and first responders, what should they know when dealing with people with special needs?
Well, we have developed, they need to not touch the person because many people on the spectrum have a sensitivity to touch. And just like what happened to Latson, he was touched and then he became very defensive and aggressive. The other thing is they're very sensitive to sound, so you turn off the sirens and the lights because they're sensitive to light. Turn them off if you can. If the situation warrants it, please turn them off. The other thing is, people with autism like to make you happy. So if they think you want a yes answer, they're going to give you a yes if they're verbal. If they see that you're not happy with that answer, they're going to change it. So you can't really tell if they are giving you accurate information or not. So please clarify all the communications. You make sure you understand what they're saying and that they understand what you're saying. And you speak slowly. Clearly and slowly, because they process slower. So you need to talk very plainly, calmly, and slowly so that they understand what you mean and what you want them to do.
In addition, the individuals on the spectrum often don't make eye contact, and so doing or not doing, people look at them and think they're being defensive, and that necessary for the officer to know that lack of eye contact is not because he or she is trying to hide something. It's just part of what the individuals on the spectrum will portray very often, more often than not.
Mm-hmm. So your organization deals with people who have other conditions other than autism?
Yes. We realized early on that individuals with other neurologic deficiencies like IDD, which is intellectual development disabilities, Downs, Parkinsonism, Alzheimer's, will also benefit from being immediately identified as being or having a disability. The other aspect is that when you see the logo, you identify them. There's a telephone number that if they need information, they being the first responders, they would call that number, give the special number associated with that individual, and we would have contact information that we could give to the first responders to be able to get in touch with someone other than or whoever is listed on that contact list.
Now, I just want to mention, if you don't mind, that both of your sons, you have 2 sons, and both of them are autistic.
Yes, and this whole program we initiated, if I can help your child, that child, everybody else on the spectrum, the saying, I think it was Kennedy that said, a rising tide floats all boats. And so if I can help keep your kids safe, it'll help keep my kids safe.
And part of the program is the person with the disability wears a bracelet or something identifying them as having this disability.
Correct.
And what other information does the bracelet have on it?
It's actually, like I said, 3 contacts that can be accessed without the password protection. But there's other information that is password protected that will tell what sets an individual off, what causes him to or her to have meltdowns, and what can be done to help to minimize that or not exacerbate that problem.
Okay, for example, if someone is walking down the street or someone's waiting outside of a place for someone and a police officer approaches them, someone called and said, hey, this guy is loitering or whatever. What would the police officer do if they understand your program? Will they look for certain behaviors? Would they look for that identifying information?
Well, first, be aware that, particularly with autistic individuals, if they're not making eye contact, it's not because they're being deceitful or trying to be defensive. That's the nature of the neurologic aspect, is that they don't do eye contact. There's nothing they're trying to hide. And then also, as Joyce said earlier, don't touch, don't try to control the situation by handling the individual. And basically, if you can see that logo and you can see the number, call that number, and that would give information as to whom else that first responder might call that could come out to assist them possibly, or to give information about, like I said, what would cause them to escalate or de-escalate.
You all give trainings all over the state.
Yes,
with this.
We do trainings. Right now for the CIT, we have partnered with Sante Group, and they, excuse me, they train Prince George's County's crisis intervention teams, which includes not just officers, but also fire, corrections, local municipality police. So we do train them about autism. We also have training that anyone across the country can take for free. It's on a website called First Forward, which actually does the training, continuing education training courses of all kinds for all first responders.
And besides first responders, there are other people who could benefit from this training, such as educators.
Oh yes, educators really. In fact, I had an educator from Parkdale who called and asked if we could help them and if they could help us. So we're always reaching out. Teachers now are being flooded because everyone's being mainstreamed, but they were not taught about autism or how to help or how to train or how to teach those with autism. So, or how to de-escalate them if they have a meltdown inside the classroom. So they need training. Restaurant, the wait staff needs to know. Hairdressers, especially children hairdressers, they have these, and barbers, they have the kids come in and they're having a meltdown. Everyone, businesses can use to learn. The community needs to learn.
Now, we want to mention the fact that there are special education teachers who specialize in things like that. But we're talking more about general
Yes, general education
teachers
yes.
who would benefit as well.
Yes.
But I know we've had too many tragic incidents, one recently with a child being dragged by a teacher and a nurse.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
No, it doesn't have to be that way. And the training should be an ongoing, it should be free. It's on my heart that these people are trained. If we're interacting with our children, they should be trained for free. This is not something that should cost them to have to go and take a course. This is something that should be mandatory and that every teacher should learn it, just like CPR is for nurses or whatever. It should be mandatory because everyone is being mainstreamed now.
Is it mandatory for police officers, for first responders, to have this training?
It's mandatory for new recruits going through the academy to be trained, and that's just in Maryland. Each state has to make, and so it's not in 50 states, but in many states they are making it mandatory. But it's not mandatory for the older people who are already established on the force.
So what you're advocating for is for people to be trained every couple of years. That would make sense.
Yes, and ongoing, because if you never met someone who's on the autism spectrum, but you've been trained, a year later, if you're not getting another refresher on it, you can't be expected to remember it. That's why we made an app for them to download to their phone.
So tell us about the app.
Well, the app has, it's free for downloading. It has emoticons for emotions as well as different pictures, so that if they come across someone who is nonverbal, they can use those pictures on that app for the person to communicate with them what their problem is or what they want, or etc. There's also a refresher in there because it goes down the characteristics of someone with autism. So if they see someone, they're thinking, is that autism? They can look at their phone, see all the characteristics, and that would make them, even if they don't see the insignia, if they're not wearing a puzzle piece, something. So that will help them refresh their memory. Also on the app are characteristics of the other neurologic and brain disorders, from ALS, Huntington's, ataxia. If a police officer stops someone in a traffic stop and the person is slurring their words, his first inclination might be they're drunk or on some kind of medication. But if they look on the app, they can see, and the person says, oh, I have ALS. He doesn't know what ALS is, so he could go and look, see the characteristics, if that's something that makes sense.
And the individual in the automobile having the decal sometimes with the identifying logo helps. Again, the officer, if you slur speech, etc., and he or she doesn't know what's going on, seeing that decal, at least will say maybe this, and then they can check. In other words, some reason. I mean, these are split-second things that had to be done, and that's the benefit of having an identifying logo that says, stop, hesitate.
Yeah, if there's an auto accident, the driver becomes unconscious. We use seatbelt cover logo on the seatbelt cover, so that once they see a decal on the window that says someone is autistic or has a neurologic disability in the car, they can see this on the seatbelt cover. This person already has a neurologic disorder.
So you offer not just the bracelets, there are seatbelt covers, and what are some of the other items that are available to help first responders identify?
There's backpacks with the logo on there with the tips on the back, so that going into the mall, children often walk away, run away, and it could be too chaotic. So if they have this backpack on with their fidgets that they use, their chewies, their treats, their snacks, at least if somebody finds them running, they can notice immediately the person's on the spectrum. And inside, you can put your phone number in that bag, and they can just call the phone number in there and get access to them.
For the Prince George's County Police, we've partnered with them, and part of that initially was, I think it was 1,800 decals we had provided that had the 7 identifying things to look for and to do. In other words, they could put them in a clipboard or in their visor, and it's just information to have that if you see someone and you think these are going to be problematic, turn the lights out, turn down the siren, things like that. But it's really seconds.
And that was my question for you as well. They're called first responders because they have to respond quickly. What would you say to the critics who would argue that there's not enough time for those considerations? You had to make a split-second decision.
Well, that's why we thought about putting something on. That's why we have patches, we have sleeves, we have wristbands, we have all kinds of things that can be helpful just to see that. And then training the first responders is, then yes. So training the first responders to respond to that logo, that sign, becomes really important. We give them ID cards. You can give them ID cards, slap bands, earrings, fun ways to disclose that they are on the spectrum.
How successful has it been so far?
We measure success in terms of right now, first responders looking at what we do and encouraging us to continue. Right now, we're in discussion with the state of Arkansas about providing the program there. We don't have a number that we can look at and say, if you see this, this measures our success. On the program, the video, the tutorial, we can count the number of officers that have reviewed that, and that's a signal.
Right.
There were over 2,000.
Right, over 2,000 have been online and took the course. We have under 200 people on the spectrum, though, that have actually joined the IRIS program. That has a lot to do with parents as well. Parents are afraid to let their child be self-disclosed that they have an issue with being autistic or having a neurologic disability.
And that's a shame. That's a shame, because what you're offering is such a powerful tool.
Yeah, we think it's helpful, and children that have autism shouldn't be ashamed that they have autism. And that has to do with the parents really embracing that their child has special abilities and needs special considerations.
You mentioned earlier that you've even done trainings with restaurants.
Yes.
In how to deal with a situation. What are some of the other industries that you think it would be important to
train?
Yes.
Hospital, emergency rooms, patient first, those kinds of emergent type of things where they have a opportunity to interact with the autism population. The drugstores where people get their medications, restaurants,
The transport industry,
yes, Uber and Lyft,
taxis,
bus drivers, they would all benefit from at least understanding.
And what's so interesting over the last few years, and I have a son who's autistic as well. He's a teenager. Over the years, there's been more. People have been bringing more awareness.
Yes.
To autism, and like you said, it is nothing to be ashamed of. There are so many people on the spectrum.
It's now 1 in 36, according to the National Health Statistics. So, I mean, that's not what the CDC measures by the age of 8. Right.
It's 1 in 59 now, though.
59 for them.
Even in colleges now, they're developing special programs.
Yes.
For kids with special needs, and how to work with them and educating them so that they can be the best that they can be.
Yes, and you can imagine them trying to navigate adulthood in a large campus of neurotypical adults going through adulthood at the same time. So,
what would you say to the parents? Because I do want to speak to the parents about the importance of getting your message out there, the importance of letting your child be identified, so that if your child is driving down the street, if something happens, like you called it before, an issue, a disorder that can't be
invisible disorder.
Yes. Yes.
It's an invisible disability. Diabetes is an invisible disability. And hearing, that's another invisible disability, a hearing disorder. So they can't be expected to respond. Parents, keep your children safe. Make sure you allow them to live their life but be safe. If they can't speak or they have difficulty speaking, they can do this through an insignia, and you can't make people who are just going to be mean are going to be mean. And putting a little insignia to let first responders know is not going to change someone who's going to be, your child's going to be bullied, they're going to be bullied. But most people are good people, I found. So if you give them a heads up, then they understand why you look different going through the store and picking up things. They're not going to address you the same way either if they think you need special consideration.
And as people become aware, knowledge is power, and individuals are more accepting, more tolerant, and less critical when they have knowledge. And it's happening. Individuals in the community, as they learn, our sons navigate the community with little, if any, problem. I mean, they travel via Uber. One of them can drive. He elects not to, thank goodness. But like I said, they're 6'3". We want them safe, and they go everywhere. But I always say that they don't have the problem with the issue. The people around them that observe them, that's where the issue is. And so it's not just important to train businesses, but to familiarize those in the community, you and me, the everyday man and woman, about this entity. And in that regard, we do, and we will go to different meetings of parents, organizations that have club meetings and all. We don't have a problem with coming in, presenting information, just giving information that, this is not something to be afraid of.
How are you taking your message national? I know you speak at different meetings, with different organizations. How are you trying to get that out there on a national level?
Talking to people like you.
Yes.
I'm here for you.
Yes, and I am going to speak at the U.S. Autism and Asperger's Association meeting next month. We'll be at the World Autism Organization. It's going to be it's their 5th conference, but it's the first one in the United States. So we'll be there exhibiting.
We were invited to there. In other words, we just can't say we're going to go. We had to get an invitation, and we felt, you ask, how do we know we're doing a good job? We got invited.
Yeah. And we go to, I've been to the national, it's called NASRO, the National Association of School Resource Officers. We've been to the National FOP Conference, which is the Fraternal Order of Police. We've been to the National Sheriff's Association and exhibited there. So we are getting to those places.
And you also mentioned earlier that you have been working with corrections as well.
Yes. Can you imagine being a child with or a person with autism? In fact, Reggie was working at, he was doing an exhibit at the Bowie Health Fair.
Right.
And he met a man.
Yeah, a 59-year-old man who said, and he just found out he was on the spectrum within the last year. He said to help him to understand why he had so much of a problem holding a job, and why he just had so much of a problem with relationships. He didn't understand who he was. And at 59, getting that information helped him even at that date.
That is absolutely incredible.
It is.
That at 59 years old.
Exactly.
I remember back in the day, everybody would be lumped in one classroom.
Yeah.
People with autism, Asperger's, ADHD, everybody was just lumped into one group.
Right.
So you've got a lot of adults walking around not knowing why they behave the way they behave.
Exactly.
So the diagnosis, and for the parents, please, again, they need to know, if you act ashamed or that their autism is to be hidden and silent, then they're going to always be ashamed of being on the autism spectrum, and there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, their childhood, those are the formative years. The things that happen to you in the first 10 years of life impact on you the rest of your life.
Indeed, indeed. Let's mention one more time the things that you have available to help people be identified as being on the spectrum. You offer the bracelets. That's the main thing.
For free. When they join, they get use of the 24-hour hotline is free. They get an ID card, they get a letter that goes to their local police or their local fire department giving them information that this person at this address is on the spectrum or has a disability.
We
whatever
send that
it
letter.
is.
We don't give it to
We
them.
send that
We
letter.
send it to those individuals.
And they have to become a member?
They become a member, they sign up online, and they'll get a member ID number. We give them ID card, and am I missing something? The hotline?
Yeah, the PDF.
And the PDF file. We send them a PDF file of their emblem with their member ID number on it and our hotline number. There's like 12 on a page. They can print it out as much as they want on iron-on paper, cut it out, iron it on anything they want. Jackets, whatever, and that's free. And so that everyone should be able to self-disclose in the way they want that they're on the spectrum.
So there are several ways to self-disclose.
Exactly.
It's not one size fits
It's
all.
not one size fits all. Some people can't stand anything new touching them. Ironing it on their shirt, ironing on their sleeve, or on their jacket, on their backpack, those are ways you can still do that.
And things for the car.
Things for the car. There's a seatbelt cover for the car. There's patches for jackets, patches for their sweatshirts, wristbands, like the terry cloth wristbands that are soft, will actually heat press their ID number under the edge. What else? Sleeves. Those kind of, we call them, what was the football player? I'm terrible on football. What was the football player that wore those sleeves, the sports sleeves all the time?
No, he's not
He's
really
not a
popular.
Redskin anymore.
He's not popular.
Well, anyway, he had them. So, and we have decals for their front door and their
RG3 she's
car.
talking about.
Oh yeah, RG3.
No, he's gone. He's
I know, exactly. He's not a Redskin anymore.
So we're going to give your web address at the end of the program during the credits, so that if people are interested in finding out more about the organization, finding out the hotline number, finding out or answering questions.
Answering questions. There's lots of information there. And there's also another website if you have someone on the autism spectrum. It's www.autismiddtraining.org. And we have training for those people on the spectrum as well about law enforcement and lingo.
Sounds good. Sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you.
We have been talking to Dr. James Benjamin and Joyce Benjamin, who is a registered nurse.
Yes.
And we've been talking about their organization, Autism FYI. Check it out.
Thank you.
And you've got a lot of good info.
Thank you so much.
give.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You've been watching the Sisters for Fitness Wellness Show. I'm Stephanie Gaines-Bryant. Have a great day.